Hello everybody, I'm Mike Levin, and this will be my Raspberry Pi unboxing and first boot up video. I start with a pan across my desk because my work area in my Commodore 64X unboxing video was such a subject of discussion. And there it is, the package I was waiting 3 months for. Shout out to Element 14 for being the first distributor to take my order and ship me the unit. Here's a little cardboard box it comes in. This is going to be an 8-minute video. I could have probably edited it down to half of that, but you'll see why I didn't in a few moments. I decided to keep this whole experience rather raw and show you all the same issues I encountered. We take the device out of its little anti-static bag. And there it is, the $35 computer that's going to change the world. There's the USB ports and the network jack. There's an old school RCA video connector, so it connects to almost any TV of the past 20 years, and the little black connector is the audio. There's the all-important HDMI video connector for connecting it to modern TVs with beautiful high-res graphics. On the back, that little gray area is where the SD card slides into. Much more on that. So now we set up the SD card. It doesn't ship with one, so we actually have to make it ourselves. I Google where to download it. I go down and I click on the Debian Squeeze torrent file. I happen to be on Ubuntu right now, so it downloads the torrent, and when you open that, it actually starts pulling down the file, amazingly. Ubuntu ships ready to torrent. Go Ubuntu. I thought I'd do the whole thing on my Ubuntu box, but it turns out the instructions on using the DD command and how to get your actual raw SD file or image, or your raw SD address, is much more clear on the Macintosh. So I did the second half of this, preparing the SD card on the Macintosh. This is my power supply. Raspberry Pi recommends a 700 milliamp power supply. I went with 1500 just to be sure, in case I'm ever driving other devices off of this. I'm hooking up the mini USB cable, mini USB style B cable, connecting the SD card, now the network cable. I'm plugging in the HDMI video cable. And now the mouse and keyboard. And finally, I turn this thing on by plugging it in. There is no on. Plugging it in is turning it on. So I plug it in and rush back to make sure you see lights flickering. If the lights aren't flickering, you prepared your SD card wrong, which happens if you get the raw name wrong of your SD card. You could end up trying to copy the file to a partition location instead of the actual physical start of the SD card. Also, in my extreme optimism, I pan right up to the monitor expecting to catch the startup process beginning, and here's the reason. It's a 8.5 minute video, because at this point you wait and wait and wait. And I decided to keep it intact because other people going through the same experience need to know that this is all right. So long as those lights are flickering on your Raspberry Pi motherboard, it's working, and you will eventually see the old familiar scrolling text of a Debian startup. And there's the Raspberry Pi logo up where the Tux penguin usually is. It may not look it for people who aren't into Linux or Debian in particular, but this is all actually quite reassuring. And eventually it ends at a login command. The username is Pi, and the password is Raspberry. I happened to Google up that information ahead of time. This actually is the very first time I'm starting this up. You're seeing my first, the raw experience. So after I logged in, I typed the command start X, which is their way of starting the graphics interface that ships with this Debian prepared specifically for Raspberry Pi. And once again, we wait. And we wait for some indication that things are going correctly. Okay, so there, great, a mouse. We've got some indication that things are happening, and maybe a background will pop up. Oh, there's a menu at the bottom. Okay, we've got our Raspberry Pi logo. Great. What's the first thing we do? Web browser. Okay, so we're going to look at the Start menu to see if we can find a web browser. We find something under Internet called Midori. That sounds promising. So I click on that, and in my impatience, I also click on the little globe in the Quick Start icons at the very bottom there. And I think I click on a third thing as well. So we know what happens, right? It eventually catches up with me, and we get 3 windows. So I decide to close all but one, and I get a surge of enthusiasm seeing how something appears in one of them. Maybe we have internet. Oh, wait, but that's a file address in the address bar. Okay, so let's put Google in there and see if we can reach the net. Ah, no, okay. So fast forward. I stop and start the network. I go into the name server file settings. I make sure everything's right, and I'm able to pull up Google. And so that you don't have to take my word for it, we perform a Google search here, and we'll visit the Raspberry Pi website to make the whole thing wrapped up neatly and self-referential. And despite all these time delays, this is some of the first releases of a Linux for this device, and I expect a lot of optimization to occur and for much more lightweight versions of Linux to appear that'll make this thing feel a lot more snappy. You get an awful lot for $35.